Coming out in just a few months is the Xbox Adaptive Controller, built for the Windows PCs and the Xbox One, so that disabled people would also be able to enjoy their favorite video games like they would before. And I have to say, Swanee, we've heard about this for a while now, but this is a really, really interesting idea and something that really advances video games to an entire population of people I think all the time we forget are even around, but there are millions of disabled people across America and across the world that would enjoy still playing video games that are just forgotten about, and this does give them that opportunity to play video games again. And what's interesting about this topic and why we want to talk about it is that where could kind of this technology go from here, where it gives people the ability to play video games and things like that, and will other video game systems try to adopt the same thing?
Well, to start us off, I think this is like a great idea. Like, my favorite hobby is video games, obviously. Like, I play video games every single day of my life. I could not imagine, like, say you lose an arm or something. That completely changes the way you play video games, because you're so used to using your controller. You have to use both hands, and you have to use like both thumbs with the joysticks for everything. So, like, imagine if you lose an arm, or then you just have to use one hand. But now with this controller, there's so many different things you can do with it. There's like different buttons and there's joysticks you can adapt to it, and you can even use this controller paired with another Xbox controller. So, say you are missing a hand or something, you could just like hit the buttons with your left arm or the hand that's missing, and then you could use your other hand as the other part of the controller, and you can just basically, this controller will fit your needs depending on whatever your situation is. I think you could even use this thing with your feet if you wanted to.
Yeah, and
so
that's the most amazing part to me, is just that there's so many different kinds of disabled people that can use this. It's not just for, I would imagine, like, it wouldn't be the hardest thing in the world to make it just for someone who's lost a limb or something. But it works for people with cerebral palsy. It works for people that can only use their feet or can only move even their chin. It's incredible. They've adapted it to so many different kinds of disabled people. And that's the part that shocks me more than anything else. They have so many different attachments that you can put into it depending on whatever your disabled problem is. So it's really an incredible piece of machinery technologically on its own too. And just to think of something I think most people just totally forgot was an issue.
Oh yeah. I don't think you realize this is an issue unless it impacts your life directly, like if you have a family member and you don't think about these things until they happen to you. Like, if you were in a car wreck and you're like, "Oh no, I completely forgot. Like, now I can't play video games. Like, what am I supposed to do?" Like, how are you like, it could be life-changing. Like, if your favorite hobby is playing video games, and then all of a sudden that's taken away from you for whatever reason, you have a disease, and you lose your arms, or you just lose mobility and you can only move your face and you have to use your chin to play. Before, this was impossible, and now this option is out there for people. So just the fact that everyone can play video games. Now, it's $100, which is kind of pricey for a controller, but I mean, it's a special controller. It's designed, I mean, it's very unique. I think the $100 price tag's not that out of reach. And plus, I mean, this is better than no option at all. I think tons of people would go out and spend money on this controller.
What I think is interesting too is, like, it's weird when I heard you said that. First off, like, I got in a horrible accident. I'm like, oh no, I can't play video games. It's not your first thought that comes to your head, but after you get through everything else,
later.
Yeah, it's something you realize later. You're like, wow, my favorite hobby, I can't do it. And it sounds like a small thing to some people, especially if they're not that into video games. But if you're someone who that's your main hobby and that's the way you communicate with your friends, that's the way you spend your spare time, and more importantly, for a lot of people, that's the way they escape. That's the way they escape whatever problems they have in their reality. And if you're disabled, there's so much that you would like to escape and you would like to not have to think about for a while. and all the struggles you have to go through, video games is a fantastic way to escape. And for the longest time, they had absolutely no accessibility to that escape anymore, and this gives them that. I think that's the coolest thing about it, is it renews a major hobby for so many people. And also, in general, I think people forget or don't realize just how many people love playing video games around this country. It's humongous. So if someone gets in a serious car accident or has a disease come upon them in any way that affects their mobility, this gives them the option to keep their hobby and to keep the escape that they've been able to have throughout their life. And that's extremely important, not just for that person to be happy, but it's extremely important for recovery. If you are thinking more positively, it generally helps you get better overall from any kind of mobility problem you may have, depending on if it's something that obviously you can get better from. So there's so many different parts to this that I don't think the regular person thinks about, or at least not something I would have thought about originally.
No. Plus, Larry Herb, which is Major Nelson, tweeted a few days ago about the packaging of the box. Now, it's actually designed where it's just like this piece of cardboard, but the top of it has like a pull away. So they even made the box like designed, so it's accessible to everybody. So they went all out with this thing. Now, my question is, since this thing can adapt to pretty much anything you do to it, like you can plug in joysticks, and you can plug in other controllers, and you can have different push buttons and stuff. Who's to say that, like, someone that's not disabled could take this thing and, like, just rig it however they want? Would that give somebody an advantage? Like, say I have the Elite controller, and I can map any buttons I want to it. Like, I can have all the paddles on my back fingers, and I can map the Y button to the bumper or whatever. And then I buy this thing, and I pair it with my Elite controller, and, like, say I take the thing and set it on the floor, and then I design it so that I can work it with my feet. Like, so I make the big paddles like the jump button or something. So I could just be playing, and then I could just tap with my foot and then jump, or just who knows what. Or I could add an extra joystick. Like, would this give anyone else an advantage over someone that doesn't have this controller?
Let me put it this way. I think maybe it could, but I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. Let me put it in this perspective. Like, if you go through all the work of getting all these different pieces and trying to figure out what comfort works for you the best, and you use it in this way, which obviously is not the way it's supposed to be used, which has its own moral thought process to it, I guess. I mean, why you're buying it in the first place. But if you were to rig it that way, I don't think it would necessarily give you a major advantage. It might just be something that feels more comfortable to that person. It's not the same as like having a modded controller where your button presses faster than that person's button. I don't think it's going to have that problem. I think it could have it could make you better, where maybe for some reason you'd play better if you tapped it with your foot as opposed to your thumb. I don't think that's necessarily unfair. What would be unfair is if, like, one person hits one button a certain way, another person hits it, and that person is faster. I don't think that's going to happen that often. However, there's also the problem of if a disabled person is trying to play this game, and I don't know how competitive they can be depending on what their disability is and all that kind of stuff. If would it ever be a situation where they'd be like, they wouldn't want to play it anyway just because it's not enjoyable because they can't do it like they used to or something like that? Would that ever be a problem? And even then, I still think it's worth it to be able to play in any degree. I think they'll take over not being able to play at all. But there are those little kind of conversations that come with it. Overall, I still think it's an extremely good thing to have and really smart idea on Microsoft's part. But yeah, there are those little things that are attached to it that kind of make you wonder, could that actually be something people are worried about in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see too many people going out and buying this to try to give them an advantage.
I could see people doing that.
Because,
think about it.
Depends on how much you can, like, break this thing. If you can plug it into your PC and, like, go crazy with it, well, I'm sure someone out there is going to do something game breaking and try to
That's not a crazy thought at all. I mean, let's say it made you better than everybody else at Fortnite.
Oh yeah, then everybody uses
that's
it.
a lot of money there. That's not just oh boy, I'm better than them. No, there's money to be made there. So yeah, that's a legitimate question of interest if that would ever.
Well,
be
here's
a
an
thing.
example. Say it's a game where, okay, like Gears of War, and you had to, like, you get into a chainsaw battle and you have to tap the B button faster than the other person. Say you are playing this thing with this controller and you have a regular controller paired with it. Say you have both the big paddles that come on this thing are both set to the B button, and you also have the B button with your hand. You could tap the B button with your feet and the B button with your fingers, so that would definitely give you an advantage over someone that doesn't have 3 B buttons. Like, see what I'm saying? But like I said, I don't think this is going to be a problem. Like, for the most part, like, you're not going to see thousands upon thousands of people trying to break the game with this. This thing's not really like, you might get 1 or 2 here or there that are trying to figured out some sort of rig that makes them better than the other person with this thing, but that's not what it's designed for.
I certainly hope that people don't ruin this like really smart thing by being scumbags. But there's a lot of scumbags out there. So if it was an actual possibility, there would be scumbags who would do it. So it's not a dumb point to bring up. It's just I really hope that wouldn't happen, because it's a great thing for disabled people to finally be able to play their video games.
And there's hundreds of different combinations for this thing. Hundreds.
Yeah, which is incredible.
Yeah, so, I mean, and this is the first of its kind. There's not been, like, anything this crazy adaptive for the disabled like this. So I'm glad that Xbox is taking this sort of leap forward, and I hope that other game companies follow suit to this. Hopefully, like, Sony and PlayStation will make one, or something for the computer. But I mean, I don't know how adaptive this is. I doubt that you can. Yeah, it's not like you could take this and plug it into your PlayStation. I doubt that it's set up that way. It wouldn't be very smart for Xbox to do that. In fact, it's really smart that they have this. This might get a lot more people to go over to Xbox, because they're like, well, I can't play my PlayStation without a hand, but I can easily play the Xbox. So, pretty good move on Xbox part.
Yeah, I hope it works for them too, and it's just a cool thing overall. So I hope this leads to more options in the future for disabled people. So let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Do you see what we're talking about with any potential issues there, or overall just a fantastic product for the disabled and everything else? Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like this video as always, subscribe if you haven't before, and hit the bell for notifications, and we will talk to you in the next video.
Goodbye.
Goopa noopa.